Well, good thing we're still year one, right?
Yes, right.
Or-
Almost.
Go ahead.
So we've got, most of these people moving from California here. We've got most of them moving to Maricopa County. And, we're in this little lull, we think. Never said the sky is falling. But we were just talking today with, we're talking with Mo Hamida, he was on earlier, not with Nations Lending, about how we all feel like this thing is going to catapult again. The buyer, the pent-up buyer demand did not go away. The buyer fatigue that kicked in and kicked everyone to the side is still, those people have not refreshed. And rates are going to take another one of those half-point drops like they did last week. I think we're going to see this massive flow back in, and so we're going to keep talking about people should buy. But so West Valley. West Valley's kind of got hit.
Well, it's gotten hit, but it's also the largest growth area.
Yeah.
Furthest east, furthest west, just like it has been for years and years. And the reality is when people have to buy, they have to buy, right? There's people moving here. There's tech companies moving here. That chip plant up by 17 and through. That's just insane area.
4 mile long.
And there's not even homes up there for those people yet. So, a lot of those people, until the infrastructure gets built for them, they're going to be moving by Bernie, by Kim, by Jennifer more so, you know what I mean? So, people that come from Texas and California, I only have to drive an hour to work? Oh, that's a lot less than
Anthem.
So
it's taken a huge...
So if you think about I-17 and 303 where that big plant is, they could honestly be in the furthest west point of Buckeye and be less than an hour to get there.
Yeah.
True.
Well, and the amount of business that's relocating or creating HQs in Greater Phoenix is pretty phenomenal. 55 companies, there's like 200 of them that are vetting our area, and Lucent, there's a bunch of companies that are supporting this semiconductor company that are launching ground in the East Valley, like Casa Grande and Queen Creek.
Yeah.
You've got all of that whole 303 area that's just going to be full of development, and people need to live somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. And we still have a structural housing deficit that we never got a hold of either. And that's all going to, builders have slowed their building. And so, I think 23 could be a very interesting year.
Yeah, this is a moment in time in our real estate market, but from a big picture standpoint, there's so much future potential for Greater Phoenix area. You were mentioning earlier how there's this lull that's being felt. There's a lot of dynamics with interest rates. There's a lot of dynamics with affordability. There's a lot of dynamics with labor and wages. And at the end of the day,
seasonal.
And it's also seasonal, yeah. And at the end of the day, I always say this, I'm like, a good economy, bad economy, people will always seek shelter. And I think as the practitioners in this space, it's our responsibility to get in front of people that truly need to buy or truly need to sell, right?
Well,
because that's what's frustrating for a lot of the agents in this
We
market
talk
right now.
about the pivot. So,
Yes.
June was kind of like flying on an airplane 36,000 feet and you hit an air pocket and you drop 10,000 feet and all of a sudden you're just going to go, oh.
You got tilted.
Yes.
But then it hit this kind of normal, which, remember, 7 agents who have been in the business less than 7, 8 years don't know what a normal market is.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, it's catastrophic for the moment. But that pivot is true. We've been talking about how you've just got to talk to people because they will ask the questions, and no different than I guess you all run into that too. Agents are asking questions, and people moving are asking questions, and our job is to be educated on that. It's like knowing those numbers. It's like knowing what's the future might bear. It's important to have experts. So what?
You got to know the data.
You got to know.
And you got to know the numbers.
Did I say that ever to agents? Got to know.
You got to know the data.
I used to not be a data guy. I used to be kind of big
And-
picture,
and
color crayon.
And then understand how that works, right? Like how many agents truly understand what the interest rate and how that affects from a mathematical equation, right? Like really dig into those things because that's going to help you tremendously. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the person teaching the math equation, but to have the familiarity, have a Mo on your team that like you can
Connect
bring
them with
in.
the right person,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
The resources we have available for us, for realtors, for anybody in the business is ridiculous. It's people, it's
Yeah.
apps, it's websites, it's all over there. And some of them
TV.
differ. We have our
Yeah.
economists for our company, and I mean, we're saying, third, probably fourth quarter of next year when we start to see a turn. But then you hear it every day. We hear from other people, oh, January, we're going gangbusters.
Well, I think
So,
the biggest truth to that is everyone's right.
Yeah.
Because Buckeye will be different than Peoria, will be different than Carefree. I mean, these micro markets, we keep talking about these small markets. There are areas right now, I was looking at appreciation, year-over-year appreciation, 85255. It's equal to what it was last year. But you go to other areas and it's down. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you just cannot make these sweeping comments. And you guys see it in your different offices too. I mean, we think we live in this little bubble up here, but I imagine that the agents you run into in the West Valley are dealing with different issues maybe than we are in the North Valley.
and always has been.
Yeah, always. And there's that.
Transactional, marketing, everything.
There's that. And then there's also, you said it, alluded to it a little bit earlier, is that we're in a market right now of skills. And we've left a market of opportunity. And so a lot of those agents, that 5 to 8 year window, that normal thing that they're not familiar with today, it's because you got to work on the skills piece of it. And for some people, they're realizing that, whoa, I need to understand how to do this, or do this, or do this. And then there's consistency and the discipline in it. And so I think that's the other piece of it too. So there's all these micro markets, but then within all these micro markets, you have practitioners that do or don't, that aren't working on their skills or are working on their skills. And then establishing, I mean, we talk to agents, it's actually pretty fascinating that they've heard the term farming, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how to do it.
They don't know what a John Deere is.
Yeah.
Right.
And some
Right.
have never done an open house
and
before.
exactly. And it's not that we're not demeaning it or not, but for us on the title side, it's been a huge eye opener to realize that, whoa, we've taken some things for granted because all of us here have been in the business for a long time.
Well,
So-
it's funny you say that because we had Tina Tambor on, and I said, so what's the craziest thing anyone asked you? And she said, an agent recently asked me what this seller paid closing costs thing was.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you haven't been in the business,
They don't know that's
I
an
don't
option.
know.
they don't know. So speaking of crazy, Jennifer, you deal with all sorts of people.
My favorite.
What's your craziest title story? So what we're doing is telling people who
That
are
you're
gonna-
allowed to talk about.
Yeah, well,
I've got a few that I don't think we should mention.
no, so think about with a buyer or seller, so we can tell people what not to do by this example.
I'm not sure that I have an example
Oh,
of what not to do.
I-
Like as a very pinpointed
Well, okay,
example,
general-
but I
make
can
it
give you a
together.
general. I can give you a general. So, my biggest pet peeve, I would say, with buyers and sellers is if they're from out of state and they know what it's like there. They don't know what it's like here, just like how we were talking about roundtable closings and attorney closings and how here in Arizona we're different. We're an escrow state. They don't ask questions. They always make assumptions and then they get angry, but they don't ask questions. So
I think that's from the north, those passive aggressive people, don't you know?
it varies. It's from everywhere. It's just, that's my biggest thing is that we try to be as informative up front of what the expectation is for closing and to have them tell us how it's going to be and not ask,
Well,
when we're trying to help
And I would
them.
agree with the agents, and I will include myself in this. We get so caught up in our own acronyms and the process, just whip through the process and maybe don't spend the time we should, especially with buyers. Well, even sellers. Someone says, I haven't sold a house in 20 years. I've lived here my whole life. Okay,
Yeah.
it's different. And that education piece, I think, is crucial. But it's telling people you want to tell them about the title process. They glaze over like, can't we go have happy hour instead?
Right.
Well, that's right. That's Kim's department. But
Yeah.
Well, it's the same for agents and their clients. They're taking their clients out for drinks instead of reading the
Yeah.
fine print in the contract.
Well, and it's one thing if you're not reading it, communicating it. Everybody works with their buyers and sellers differently on
Oh,
the real
right.
estate
You can't-
side, right?
yeah, there's not-
But the knowledge that the realtor should know about the process, it's one thing not discussing it with the client, but another thing is making sure you have the knowledge.
Yeah.
So being able to answer the question, not that we're not there, Jennifer, I mean, that's why she's answering and returning phone calls late at night, because questions come up. And Jennifer, you can give me a very high percentage of all the questions you answer. 10 years ago, how many of those questions were answered by the realtor?
I would say none. they're still not answered by the
Right.
realtor.
And it's
They
stuff
still
that
get
is
the-
gone over in, the school, and that's what we're there to
okay,
help.
but- So the school, okay,
My number one question I get asked
yes.
by a seller is, why am I paying for an Alta homeowners policy? And it's in the contract.
It is.
And because things are so digital these days, like DocuSign, DigiSign, whatever,
No one's reading anything.
nobody's reading
Mm-hmm.
anything. So they aren't, I feel like setting that expectation of
Yeah.
what's going on in the transaction before you're accepting that transaction as the seller, you should be getting like a run through.
Right.
I mean, that's just a basic in my personal
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, I agree with you, and, and we do have clients that will say, let me read this, let's read it first.
Oh, we've been in those
Good.
closings.
Yeah.
But,
Every single
well, yeah,
word.
Not that, yeah, no, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about even the contract, so
Right.
they'll at least review it.
Mhm.
Others just like to click, how did you click that quick? I mean,
Right.
and, that's not a good situation, but you're right, it gets back to agent knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and I also think what you kind of lead into is just the whole communication standard. I think communication in general between the contract, the buyers, the sellers, the realtors, and title has always struggled, right? Like escrow officers love those agents that like they get the email with the contact information. This person's going to be out of town. By the way, they're in the military. Do you have a discount? Like everything's on the front end. That's amazing communication.
That's me, except I scratch it out on a napkin. or-
Yeah. And then I think what ends up happening is that trickle down effect, right? So are the agents having great communication standards with their clients? And the client relationship is lasting a lot longer now. And so is that agent going in on the front end and saying, here's what you can expect from me on communication? Like, here's what we're looking at and I feel like from the sales side of things, the observation I have for the transaction is the escrow officer didn't know or wasn't told that something was expected, like someone was going to be out of town, or that somebody needed this, or that
The out of
different-
town thing, I hear a ton.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you
Yeah.
knew you were going to be in another country
Or-
when we needed you to sign?
Yeah, or mobile, like getting the mobile set up and people's expectation for oh, I had to be here when that person came. Like, so a lot of those, I feel like there are a lot of little things that just kind of get
Kind of
forgotten.
the same, like, oh, I had to be moved out of the house to close.
Yeah.
Like at closing, I had to
Oh,
leave.
yeah, I know,
My mom did that. My mom totally
Well,
did that.
and a lot
She's
of
like,
it is-
I've lived here for 27 years.
Well,
How dare you?
And we all know there's two realtors on the deal normally, right? So a common one too is, well, that addendum needed to come to me as well for me to know about that change to the contract.
Right.
Right.
Not just sent to the other agent.
Yes.
So, people, and we're trying to take steps as a company, system-wise, to
Yeah.
provide more communication to you automatically.
We could all, we could go deep into that. I think overall we get used to who we work with, and so I think our biggest problems are when we deal with other title companies, because there are many that are not great communicators, and I won't mention names of them, but I'd like to.
That's why you always just use lawyer's title.
Yes, Kim. Yes, that's
I
right.
like how she actually steps up to the
I know.
microphone.
She wanted
got
to be
loud
more-
on the podcast.
Really,
on that one.
really hurt that you-
Yes, and you said it so slow.
Kim.
Yeah.
Don't forget it.
The other piece that I think we run into is a lot of these HOA issues. You guys are responsible for ordering that HOA the documents, and why didn't you get them there in 5 days? And because the HOA didn't even respond, and
Well, actually, we order it within 24 hours of opening escrow,
Right.
and they get 10 business days by law. And that's in your HOA addendum. I'm pretty sure nobody
is.
reads that either.
no one does. Agents don't, no.
Yeah.
We've been back to the one-on-ones in our group, so we've got, agents of varying experience levels, but even I've seen the contract 100 times, 1,000 times, you forget, and you gotta be in tune with every little piece of it, and then they make a little change, and then we all go, oh crap.
So we have those memorized. Probably the last 5 changes are all memorized. Like anyone who's a decent escrow officer who's been in the business for more than 10 years has at least their current and the previous contract memorized. They know what changed.
Yeah.
They know what to tell agents. We're going through the same questions every transaction.
Yeah.
Small things are changing in every transaction.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Well, and also the training. I mean, the company you work for makes a big impact and a big difference. I think that we have such seasoned closers like Jennifer, but the company also provides a ton of resources for
But then you have
you
self-education
have
as
to
well.
self-educate. Yeah.
yeah, self-education's an interesting thing, especially for the entrepreneurial types. They go, oh, do I need to do that? I don't really, that's not fun. But it's, we've gotten back to what's our fiduciary. Fiduciary is number one.
Number
is
one.
Knowing the contract inside and out, because we're representing people spending lots of money or selling something, getting a lot of money, we better know that contract inside and out.
Yes.
And I will say, I'm not afraid to admit that if I don't know something about the doggone contract, I go talk to Jennifer, because she'll go, well, let me look on page,
Yeah.
column, and she'll go, and I'll go,
Well, and in all fairness, right, we see the contracts a lot more. I mean, we would love for you to see as many contracts as we do every single month. That would be awesome, right? So we see a lot more, and honestly, it's not even seeing it. It's that you're getting questions every single
Right.
day.
Well, and
It's
we read it.
forcing you
Yeah.
to relook at it every day.
Yeah.
And we read, and we double check, and we don't trust ourselves, so we reread
is there
it.
a
Reread it.
picture version of the contract? Because I would like that.
I do
Well,
snippets when
maybe
I send you guys.
maybe
emails.
like a pop-up book.
Yeah, a look at the contract.
Pop-up book.
You-
If you
that's
actually
a-
get in the contract.
That's $1 million idea.
I know. Be like Joey and friends.
I
I
can
need
reach
to
out
get
to
in the
AAR
map.
now.
I got you in the mouth.
In the map.
Hey, I gotta make an observation here. I have never in my life been with Kim Hickey when she has been this quiet. There we go. There we patented laugh.
I know.
What's on your mind?
What do we want to talk about?
Where's the next happy hour? No,
Yeah.
let's spend more of David's money. No,
What are you seeing from
yeah, what do you hear?
do?
You're out there. You're right. I mean, you got people calling you going, just
What
tell
I'm
me this.
seeing is just, for the past couple of years, agents didn't need any help with marketing their properties. They, their listings were flying off the market, and now everybody needs me. They need my help. Just like Bernie said, a lot of agents don't know what farming is, because if they just got in the business a couple of years ago, they didn't have to do that. So helping people with putting on home tours to get more eyes on their listing, putting together broker opens, helping them target farm an area,
Well, and I think
client
that we-
appreciation events.
Yeah, I think that we do a really good job of getting back to the basics with modern elements to it, right? So, technology, better list, better data, and it's the same, open house, but it's not, right?
Right.
So we're digging in and being more strategic and then providing better data so that there could be a better effective rate on some of those efforts.
So you're not in the business of helping agents with their downstream pyramid marketing that happens in some brokerages? Is that right?
No.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Blocking
There's a
and tackling.
benefit for us. Please let me know.
Yes,
I heard
that would be
Yeah.
great.
Getting that pyramid thing.
Yeah.
So where are we at on time?
You guys are good.
Okay, well, we're good. That's good. I was just going to talk a little bit about Cromford today. We talked a little bit about how you could read one thing and think the opposite of what's happening. And I know you were talking about stats on migration, which is part of it. It says basically the whole valley has moved slightly into a buyer's market. Very dangerous overall. Now, this is Mike Orr, so granted it's agents, and we know that we would never take that at face value, but I think that's when our knowledge comes in. So if everyone hears buyer's market, and then we still have sellers thinking their houses are perfect, and we've got buyers thinking now they should be able to offer 50%.
Right.
But the other thing you talked about was this little blip that happened with the rate drop last week, and how there was actually a blip up in new contracts. I mean, obviously people are watching. I think it's those nuances that we all are watching that is what we need to communicate to people, not to oversell them on buying or selling, but to keep them informed, because it's the little things that lead up to those big changes. It isn't like all of a sudden they're going to make an announcement, get ready next week because we're going to drop
Right.
rates. It's these little things, and so I thought that was interesting for me. The other thing that they've been talking a lot about in there is, and we hit it on the beginning, is all this corporate growth. I mean, it's just staggering how many new companies are coming in, and so I think we're going to hit into we talked about how the top 2 months for listing, especially in North Scottsdale or North Valley, is October and January, and we really haven't had a normal listing time in the last 3 years, probably. But I would suspect we'll see an influx of inventory after the first year, maybe in the first 2 weeks. And, you know, if we can get one more rate drop, I think this thing will all of a sudden be like a bad dream. And you guys will be, Jennifer will be back with 500 files.
Right.
And
That
Kim,
sounds amazing.
no one will be asking Kim for any help.
Yeah, I
And
feel like
Dave-
we're here with like, you know, are you gonna flip some tarot cards
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. The Ouija board.
And
Yeah.
David will be getting checks approved right and left.
Yeah.
Bernie too. There you go. No sweat.
You know, I love what you said earlier about pivot, because what you bring up with the Mike Orr data and then the income inbound, like, there's a really simple phrase that I tell myself, and it's super stupid, but it helps me a lot, is like, as an agent in the title side, as a lender, you got to get actual and factual, so you can be practical and tactical.
Bernieism.
You don't do any training, do you? Because that
And-
sounds like very, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and
Do you have little
it's our
trademarks for that?
responsibility to clarify the data,
Right.
not terrify with it.